High Vibe Nation is live. Welcome to the High Vibe Nation, where we have set out to raise the vibration of every human being on the planet. Your hosts on this journey are Sherry Gideons and Pamela Aubrey. So let's join them now in their current interview with a high-vibing individual.
Hello and welcome to the High Vibe Nation, the #1 positive media show focused on raising the vibe of the planet, a space for you to remember the power within you. It's a love revolution. I'm your host, Sherry Gideons, and this is my co-host, Pamela Aubrey.
Welcome, everyone. Once again, such a joy to be with you this evening and to have an amazing guest, Steve Sims. So do you know anyone that's worked with Sir Elton John or Elon Musk, sent people down to see the wreck of the Titanic on the seabed, or closed museums in Florence for a private dinner party, and then had Andrea Bocelli serenade them while they eat their pasta? Well, you do now. Steve is the visionary founder of Bluefish, the world's first luxury concierge that delivers the highest level of personalized travel, transportation, and cutting-edge entertainment services to corporate executives, celebrities, professional athletes, and other discerning individuals interested in living life to its fullest. When it comes to getting things done, Steve Sims is your man. He founded the world's largest and most successful experiential concierge firm for millionaires and billionaires worldwide. Forbes magazine calls him the modern-day Wizard of Oz. Steve believes that relationships are everything. I'm always looking for win-win, he says. Steve is a sought-after coach and speaker at a variety of networks, groups, and associations, as well as the Pentagon and Harvard, twice. So welcome to the show, Mr. Steve Sims.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, it's good to be here. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
I don't know how to follow that bio. It's always horrible listening to your bio, and I don't know. I know one of my crew sent it to you, but it's always horrible when they do, because you have to sit here listening to it going, oh, God. So I'm going to have to get a little shorter one.
It's all good. Well, as you know, on this show, we love to talk about being high vibe. So we have to hear from you what it means to you to be high vibe.
Wow. God, that's a deeper question than it first sounds, and probably one of the quirkiest ones I've ever heard. High vibe to me would be you're focusing on what I class your ROE. So I have something within my community that we say focus on your ROE, return on energy. A lot of people do an ROI, a return on investment, but how much times do we actually put a lot of energy into something? We make a bit of money, but then we are completely wiped and we lose the entire day, sometimes even the entire week, because we worked on a project that's just emptied us. So for me, being high vibe is working at full throttle, high RPM, but high energy, high impact with good people on a good resource for a good project for a good reason. And the thing that happens is, even though you're expelling a lot of energy and RPM by doing that, you feed off of other people's. So when you've got that vibe and you can find that you're in an environment where it's reciprocated and received appropriately, you kind of get energized. And then you find yourself waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning going, can we do it again? So I would say that's probably my definition of vibe.
Oh my God.
Love that.
That's freaking awesome, because you know what? That's my vibe, and I played full out. And so I could feel that when you were talking about it. So the thing I love the most about you is that you help people make incredible things happen. And not only that, I mean, you really help people to get out of that, that not good enough, not worthy, negative mindset of themselves. And you help them go out there and play full out and create their dreams. So how did you get started in doing all this?
So we've got to get it into context. For a good 25 years, no one knew who the hell I was. I was the guy that used to lurk. We've got a mutual friend of ours, Greg Reed.
Yep.
I used to go to a lot of those events, and I know we met at Secret Knock with Greg. Yep. You'd be amazed at the amount of years I actually used to go to that event and no one used to talk to me. Okay. Everyone would avoid me. Kind of like, you know, who's the guy? Is he security? Is he the valet? You know, who is he? You know, let's just ignore the fella. And actually, I was very fine about that. But 3 years ago, I got asked to release a book, and I did. And I did it just for the hell of it, because no one had ever asked me to do it. And I released the book, Bluefishing, the Art of Making Things Happen. And funny enough, on the 17th of October, it celebrates 3 years. And now we have online coaching. We have an Entrepreneur's Advantage Facebook page, doing events all over the planet. It's just gone, wow. But you know, the funny thing, even though I've gone from a concierge where I made wishes happen into coaching and speaking and getting people to get out of their way, it's the same thing. 99% of the time, we're held back by our own parameters, our own chains, our own misconceptions, myths, and the crabs that surround us. Because I'm a great believer that what you're going to achieve is based on the vicinity you start from. If you start from a room of everyone going, no, you can't do that, well, guess what's going to happen? But if you start from a room of go get it, secret not, perfect example. If you start from a room of achievers and, as I call them, creative disruptors, then you don't have a ceiling anymore because of the room you're in. So when I first started, and I know that seems like a long-winded way of answering the question, but when I started, I was a bricklayer. And like all entrepreneurs, you know, we can sit here and we can drop names like the Pope and Sir Elton John and Elon Musk. But as entrepreneurs, we're all exactly the same. If you cut us in half, there would be a vein in there that's filled with aggravation. A vein in there that says, I can do it differently. I can do it better. You know, why does it have to be like this? That's what an entrepreneur is. And we're often kind of like, especially now you two, God, you're both 22 years old, so you won't remember this, but being 53, I remember a time where ADD was actually, you know, you were medicated for it. And you were literally looked upon. If you said you were an entrepreneur in the 80s and 90s, that basically meant you were a borderline drug dealer. You were into illegal stuff. You couldn't get a proper job. You're one of those shaky kind of guys that does deals around the back of the dumpster. That's what an entrepreneur was. Yeah. In fact, I remember one day getting into trouble at school, and I was caned by the headmaster. And he's caning me, and I had to open up the flat of my hand, and I got 3 canes. And I can't remember what I was doing. I probably wasn't paying attention and stuff like that. On the second whack of the 3 canes that he gave me, screaming at me, he said, "You're nothing but a hustler, Steve Sims." And at that, prior to the whack, all of a sudden the world went quiet. And I thought to myself, why is that a bad thing? Now, if someone walked into your office tomorrow and said, "Hey, girls, I'm the greatest hustler you're ever going to meet," you're going to employ him. If you met a hustler and a Harvard MBA graduate, who would you employ to sell your digital course?
Yeah.
Right? So now, we revere the hustler. Hustler is the first thing you put on your resume. But I came from an era that it wasn't, and I couldn't understand. Now, of course, as I fought back, what I couldn't work out was all of my friends were broke. They were poor. They had no ambition. They were settlers. And one thing that came to me was, why was this the case? And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to break that mold, and I wanted to talk to rich people. I wanted to go up to a rich person and go, "Hey, why are you rich and I'm not? You know, why?" And so quite simply, I started to organize parties and invite rich people purely and simply so I could be in the vicinity of the room that I wanted to be in. I created my own sandpit. So by making a really wonderful party with like great music and sexy girls on a yacht, I was now in a room full of rich people, and I got to associate with them. So in the early days, I was building my own speakeasies. That's my event. And I was building my own secret knocks. That's Greg's. That's what I was doing. I was building a circle. Now, out of that came a concierge firm. But I'm hereby telling you, you know, stop the press. I never started a concierge. I never wanted to start a concierge. I had no rat's care of becoming a concierge. I wanted to build a reason for me to be able to call a rich person. Now, if this was to get you a drum lesson by Guns N' Roses or stick you on the stage with the rock band Journey, hey, I didn't care because A, you were paying me a lot of money, and B, I was getting to spend many hours talking to you and working out why you ticked. And now that's what I coach through my speakeasies.
Dig it.
I hope that wasn't too much of a woolly answer for you.
Heck no, I freaking love it. And by the way,
that's
I
amazing.
come from your era. I'm 55, so I come from those eras.
Oh, shut up, you're not.
I know, man, what you're talking about.
And I'm not too far behind, 45. So we're right there with you. So tell us then, what is the biggest lesson that you learned going through that journey? You know, what did you learn about yourself?
Well, those are two questions. So let me answer one that helps you. Okay. So, and if I may, I'm going to answer it by giving you a story. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So I had a client that he'd been a long-term client with me, still is. I don't do much of the concierge business, but I still do for a handful of clients that own things like countries. You know, I still look after them. And I had this client contact me one day, and he wanted to have a dining experience in Florence. Now, you already know the ending of that. But what I did was I set up that I closed the Accademia di Galleria, which is the museum that houses Michelangelo's David. And I set a table of 6 up at the feet of David. And then as the clients turned up, now they didn't know they were going to this museum. It was all totally set up, and it was a big surprise. Halfway through them eating their pasta at the feet of the world's most iconic statue, I walked arm in arm in with Andrea Bocelli to serenade them while they're eating their food. Now that, hands down, was one of the most memorable nights of my life. You know, it was incredible. I had the entire museum to myself from 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 2 o'clock in the morning. My clients turned up at 9 o'clock and left at, I think, maybe 11 and maybe 11:15. And Andrea had turned up at 8. So I had way more time in this museum than my clients did, that paid. And I had way more time with Andrea Bocelli than they did. And again, they paid. So I had this fantastic time. But here's the story that not a lot of people know about that. So I have some very powerful friends, okay? I believe that you are the people you know. So I try to associate myself with really cool, powerful friends. And I want to give them a shout out because I keep missing them. But I saw Ken, I saw Eric Swanson just turned up. There's some cool cats that have already keep popping up here. So you've got some good friends. So you've got a good sandpit. But here's the thing that really kind of taught me a massive lesson. I contacted a very powerful family in Florence to help me get the museum to shut down for me. They didn't know who I was, so I used my connections. That's fair enough. But the people that were very powerful within the museum, they put me in touch with the curator, the head of the museum, to make sure that it all went perfectly. Now, middle management is the most arrogant and obnoxious breed of humanity there is in the planet. I always believe that if you get a no, look at the source and ask yourself, do they have the power to say yes? And 9 times out of 10, the people that are saying no to you can't say yes to what you're asking for. So you're asking the wrong question, or more importantly, the wrong person. So they gave me this curator who had been told, give Steve whatever he wants. And I, gave him, and I would say to him, now bear in mind, one thing you're not aware of, I had 2 days to pull this off. I pulled this entire event off, getting Bocelli, getting the museum, getting the string quartet, getting the chef. 2 days, I pulled that off, okay? So I would say to the curator, hey, do we have the security turning up at 6? And he would be like, yeah, it should be okay. Now, I apologize for my Italian accent, but I'd be like, I like a yes or a no. That's what I like. And I'd say, well, look, the chef is turning up at 6 o'clock, so you'll have the museum available to him at 6 o'clock. Yeah, it should be okay. And I'd be like, I don't want an okay. I want a yes. And he'd be like, won't even say yes to me. So he was pissing me off. He was the bane of my existence. Sorry, I swore. He was annoying me. So for 2 days, this guy was aggravating me. He was always immaculately turned out. Most of the time had his arms crossed. I had a hatred for him. I'll be completely honest with you. I had a hatred for him. So on the night of the event, and the chef is just setting up the table, the string quartet's just rehearsing, Andrea Bocelli's in the corner playing with the piano with his son. I'm talking to Veronica, his beautiful wife. I'm at the feet of the most iconic statue in the planet. And to the right of me, leaning up against the wall, and I won't mention his name, is the curator. And I thought to myself, all right, it's my turn to have a bit of fun. Okay. So I went, hey, how you doing? Come over here a minute. Come over. So he walks over to me with his arms crossed. And we're both looking forward. And I went, God, will you look at that table? And it's all set up with gold linen. And we had Versace plateware on there. And they're just setting up the candelabras and lighting them up, making sure the candles worked and everything. I went, is that a beautiful table? God, look, that is stunning, isn't it? And he goes, yes, it is beautiful. And I went, and over there, Andrea Bocelli, you know, just getting ready, you know, with his son on the piano. That's something, isn't it? And he's like, yes, it is beautiful. It is wonderful. And I said, and can you imagine this? All of this happening at the feet of Michelangelo's David. My God, can you think of anything better than that? And he's like, no, it is a massive. So I've got 3 yeses out of him. So I thought to myself, right, this is where I slap him. So I went, I'm just wondering, how come I was able to pull it off then? Now, this is where I expected him to go, no one's as connected as you, Steve, or no one as influential, no one's as good looking, whatever. I'd have taken any of those and been happy with it. But with his arms still crossed, he looked at me and he went, no one's ever asked.
Wow.
And it killed, and I just went, ugh. And I just flumped. Literally, my body just emptied. And I rose myself up and I looked at him, and the little Irish prick was stood there like this, just smiling at me. He knew he had got me, but he was right. Now that was about 4 years ago. We actually went out and had steak after that event, and we become very tight friends. That's why I never mentioned his name. But when I came back to Los Angeles, this really burned in me all the way back here. And I started phoning up the Pentagon. I started phoning up Elton John. I started phoning up Warner Brothers. I started phoning up the Kentucky Derby, the New York Fashion Week, Vogue, all of these big companies and people that I had worked with. And I went, hey, how you doing? Just wanted to touch base, see how you're getting on. But hey, I got a funny little question. You know, I was reminiscing about this the other week, and I just wondered, how come we managed to pull it off? Do you know, they all answered the exact same thing. You asked. And I realized that people, they don't ask. How many times, and I was very wary to make sure that you didn't do it, but how many times do you hear people say, oh, I'm going to go for the impossible? Mm-hmm. Okay? Are you aware that's the same as saying, hey, I'm going to drive through that dead end? Mm-hmm. It's you're aiming towards a negative. You're aiming towards a wall. You're aiming towards a finite step that you can't get back because you've already acknowledged it's impossible. I didn't. I always went for stupid. What is the most stupid thing I can think of? And I went for it. And quite often I would fail and I would not get the stupid, but I'd end up at the ridiculous, which was still a million miles away and ahead of what the client asked for. So now the first thing I do is I get what's 99% of all problems out of the way, which is 9 times out of 10, you. Mm-hmm. So whenever I meet entrepreneurs and I'm coaching them or I'm working with them through the speakeasy or an entrepreneurs network or Sims Distillery or anywhere, the first thing to do is shake them up and then get them out of the way of themselves and then let them get going. And I send them off to do the stupid. Never the impossible. I send them off to do the stupid.
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
Discerning.
Oh my God. So how would you say that we would, or, just people in general would network with people the right way to get, when you ask to get the results that you're talking about, these high, amazing things that you're doing?
All right. So let's say, for argument's sake, Eric Swanson's having a party next Sunday. Okay.
Okay.
And he invites you to the party. Okay. What's the first thing you do or you say to him?
I say, thank you, I'm going. Thank you for the invitation.
Okay. Well, keep thinking. What else do you ask him?
How many people are going to be there? What should I wear? What's the dressing going to be like? What type of people are going to be there?
Right.
What type of party is it? Is there a theme?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm also thinking that somewhere in that you're going to say something along the lines of, is there anything I can bring?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Right? Can I bring a bottle? Can I bring some punch? Do you want me to bring some snacks?
Mm-hmm.
You see, no one turns up at someone else's party without bringing something to the party,
Correct.
even if it's just good humor. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever you go to someone's party, you turn up with something. But when people go to a networking event, it's like this horrible myth that they don't have to do any of that. Okay. So in which case you turn up at an event and you walk up to someone, you go, hey, I'm Steve Sims. So what? So rather than going along and doing what we all do, which is collect business cards and then file them in the round tub next to our desk, why don't we go along and go, hey, Greg, I see you've got a new book coming out. I've got a great way that I can help you marketing it by bringing you onto the High Vibe Nation. Would that be of interest to you?
Mm.
Now, I know he's been on your show before, but is that not helping him?
Yes.
Right? So whenever I've gone to anyone, whether it been the Vatican, whether it been Accademia de Galleria, Guns N' Roses, Journey, anyone that I mention, I always do a little bit of research first. And I say, hey, I see you're looking to do that. I can help you with that. Hey, I know you've got an award show, but I have to say the way you're marketing it is pretty weak. I can actually find a way for you to raise the price of it and actually make more money with less people and less overhead. Would that be of interest to you? Yes, it would. Great. By the way, I need 50 of my clients to be able to come in. Is that acceptable? So you lead with bringing something to the party. Mm-hmm. So whenever you want to meet anyone, and I've done this before and I've failed brilliantly at it, okay? I've gone up to people that I've wanted to meet. I've done my research before. I know they're there. And you've met me in the secret knock. And half of the people that are making comments here, they've met me. I'm not the warmest, fuzziest person in the world. I'm not going to talk to you about what you watched on TV last night because I couldn't give a shit. Mm-hmm. I want to have an in-depth conversation with you. I want to ask probing questions. I want to know what arouses and scares you. Mm-hmm. I want to know you.
Right.
Okay? Don't care who your favorite character is on Mulan. I just don't care. So whenever I speak to anyone, I try to find out a little bit first. And then I've gone up to them and I've gone, hey, how are you? And I've said this. My name's Steve Sims. You don't know me. Okay? And this is a funny thing to say. But how many people have walked up to you and gone, hey, how you doing, Pam? And you've spent a good 60 seconds looking at them going, who the hell are you?
I know you.
Right? How many times has that happened? Okay? And especially with your show, they get to think they know you. So when they see you, they go, Bam, Gabby, how you doing? Great. And they do all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the fact is you have no idea. So you get tense. Mm. You get aggravated. You get on guard. No one says that at Eric Swanson because no one knows who he is. But, but with you, they do that. So if you can walk up to someone and go, hey, Pam, how are you? My name's Steve Sims. You don't know me. It actually relaxes you. Mm. And then you turn around and go, hey, I heard that you were actually releasing a book. And I have some ideas of how you could do it. I've walked up to very powerful people and I've gone, hey, I've heard that you were doing this, but I noticed that there were several pitfalls that, you could be running into. Have you thought of this that could possibly get in your way? Because I have some ways to get over it. And, they've turned around to me and they've gone, we had recognized those pitfalls. And that's why we canceled that project 6 months ago. Mm. And I've gone, oh, okay. But then they turned around, they've gone, but we like the way you think. Would you be willing to look at another couple of projects that we've got coming up? And I'm like, sure, let's have a look. If you lead with a solution rather than a problem, and how many people, especially when you've got staff, okay, and they run into you and they go, Steve, I've got this problem. And they stand there, okay? I have always said to people, never come into my room and give me a problem. Give me a solution. Even if the solution is stupid, try and come to me with a solution, okay? I do that with my kids. I can't do this. All right, so what's the solution? I don't know. We'll go away and come back when you got one. So always, when you're going to meet someone, walk up to them with a solution. Even if it's a weak one, they'll appreciate the effort.
Oh my God, I love that.
That is so great. What amazing advice. So, I mean, when in these moments, when you have met with so many of these people and had these incredible conversations, when just did the light bulb go off? Like, I'm onto something here. Like, this is something I have to share with other people.
It happened on the 17th of October, which is very weird. See, for 20-something years, I was just a guy in a black T-shirt riding around on a motorcycle that just had 2/3 of the world's royal family in his Rolodex. And I never, ever thought anything about it. Really, I didn't. I've flown into countries, not a few, but several countries, and been picked up from the plane by armed guards, put into a Mercedes, taken to my hotel, and then my luggage has been delivered later, and I've never gone through passport control. There are countries that I've been in that I've never been stamped on because of who owned the country and things like that. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, that's cool, but I never took it for granted. I just thought, well, this is really cool, but it's never going to happen again. And then it does. And then 3 years ago, I got approached at a party. And it's amazing what can happen when you're in the right vicinity, isn't it?
Right.
Great things happen when there's great people around you.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a party of people that could say yes in New York. And this girl said to me, you should write a book naming all the kind of rich and famous and powerful people you deal with and what you've done with them. And I said to her, if I did that, I'd be dead by cocktail hour, you know, because there's some people I can't mention names. Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, you could do it. We could make pseudonyms for them. We can make it up and stuff like that. And I said, I don't know. And I left it alone. And then I did a speaking gig, and I think it was for Joe Polish at his Genius Network. And someone contacted me and said that had been passed to the publishing house, and they were serious. And it was only a girl I'd met at a party. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, you do want to do a book? And they said, well, yeah, but now we've got to know more about you. Instead of writing a book about all the famous people you deal with, let's write a book on how a 15-year-old bricklayer can suddenly be working with Elon Musk and the Pope.
Right.
So we started to write that book. And as it was being written, and I had a ghostwriter, a brilliant woman, Megan, that actually was my ghostwriter for it. My wife was starting to say, you know, this may be able to help people, you know, because quite simply, and she means this was all love and respect.
Right.
But she says, if a stupid, ignorant person like you can do this, everyone else can. And thankfully, I've been with her for 36 years. So, you know, I'll take that as a compliment. But I do believe my superpower is ignorance. I've never been frightened of anything. Mm. I've gone and done it and then gone home and gone, I just hung out with Prince Albert and Monaco. Wow. You know, and I went riding a bike with Brad Pitt. Wow. You know, but at the time, it was just another guy that rode a motorbike, you know? So it's always been that kind of thing. The book came out and I was paid very, very well for it. And you know, I never even had, and I think you may know this, I never even had a website announcing the book.
Yep, I do.
Because I thought to myself, no one's going to bloody buy it. No one's going to believe it. And they sent me, which was really weird, they paid me a lot of money. And they sent me a check. Now, they'd always wired me the money, but one day I got a check. And I was like, what's this check for? And I opened it. It was for $2,500.
Wow.
Okay. They'd paid me well over $100,000 to do the book.
Right.
But I got this check for $2,500. And I'm like, what's this for? You know, because it was like peanuts. And they went, we want you to buy champagne with it. and get a table at the local Barnes and Noble. And they gave me the address of where it was, and it was in the Grove, Los Angeles. And they said, we want you to sign books. And I went, no one's going to be out with their family on a Saturday afternoon, look over to me and goes, well, he looks warm and fuzzy. Let's go and chat with him.
Right.
No one's going to do that. So I went, oh, okay, I'll handle it. And I didn't do it. So what I did, and you'll be able to see the video actually, on stevedsims.com, I've actually got the video of my book launch. Now, what happened was I had a favorite whiskey bar on Sunset Boulevard called the Everly. I went to him and I said, look, can I take it over next Tuesday night, just a back room? And I'll put $2,500 behind the bar. I'll invite a bunch of my friends. When that $2,500 runs out, blow the whistle, turn the lights on, and we'll piss off. And they were like, yeah, fine. So I phoned up a bunch of my friends. Greg Reed was there. We had Greg Reed, Lewis Howes, Jim Quick, Cole Hatter, Matt Maddox, Caleb Maddox, a whole bunch of people. And Sonia Hatter, liar that she is, she turned up with a guy that had like a little handy cam, not a big thing, but just like a little handy cam thing. And she said, can we get some B-roll footage, some just like party footage for a sizzle reel that we're doing for Cole? And I went, yeah, sure, suit yourself. So we just got completely shit-faced drunk. And we had a pile of books in the corner because that was the only way I could get away with calling it a book launch.
Right.
And we just got drunk. And Sonia actually recorded a video, edited it, and sent it to me. And it's on the front page of the Steve D. Sims website.
I know. I watched it. It's awesome.
But the funny thing is, you'll notice it starts off with sober. And everyone's kind of like being told to say something nice. And so it's all a case of, it's an honor to be here with Steve. You know, he did this. And everyone's like, and as it goes on, everyone's getting drunk and going, he's a fucking idiot. I'm surprised he can spell, let alone write a fucking book. And it just gets abusive as it gets through. So what I did was we actually launched, because my publisher shouted at me. And I was still, because publishers pay in 4 chunks. Okay. They still hadn't paid me my final chunk. So they said, you don't even have a website. So we quickly knocked up a website and we bunged that drunken video on the front page.
Oh my God.
And I got my final chunk. But you know something weird? People saw that video, shared it, and all of a sudden there were like thousands upon thousands of books. And now it's been a bestseller in Poland, Vietnam, Thailand, Mandarin Chinese, Vietnamese, and it's just actually being translated now for Russian. So I am stunned that it's done. So when you say, you know, when was the light bulb? It was very shortly after the book came out, and people started contacting me going, do you have a private Facebook page? Which we do, which we've already said to the Entrepreneur's Advantage. And do you have a course? And do you have events? And do you speak? And so that was the light bulb moment when I turned around and I went, do you know, maybe, just maybe I have something here. And one of the funny things was this time last year, actually not this time, March 2019, when I was flown to Marbella to be the opening keynote for the International Bridal Convention. I was the key. A bunch of women in there that make wedding dresses and flower, and I'm the keynote in my black t-shirt. And I'm sitting, and my wife's with me, and I'm like, can you believe this? You know, can you actually believe I'm being flown around the world? And I've been Thailand, Poland. I haven't done Russia yet, but we're going to be doing Russia when the book comes out. It's just amazing the places that we've been because of the book. And, you know, I suppose the permission we give people to be a little bit different and to be a bit stupid.
What an awesome story.
Awesome. That's freaking awesome. I love it.
Oh, it's too funny. So when do you feel the most alive?
That's a good one. Every day. I always drink my coffee. You know, I've got a lovely piece of land, and you know, I've got a nice home. Well, it's not a nice home; it's a bit of a shithole actually. But it's an old house that I'm doing up, and so it's got great potential. And I really feel grateful every morning when I'm drinking my coffee in my patio, looking over here, or being able to sit and chat with you, or just any of these kinds. I feel very appreciative. And then when I'm able during the day to actually impact by sharing a live feed or conversing with someone on how they need to change their marketing or their strategy, I really feel alive then. And I feel alive when I'm being challenged. And I believe, because as I mentioned, I race motorcycles as well.
Yep.
We don't find out what we're capable of when we're standing still. We find out what we're capable of when we get in the boxing ring, or when we rev the motorcycle up to 16,000 revs at 170 mile an hour going into a first bend. We find out what we're capable of then. We find out what we're capable of when we go on stage, when we're doing a podcast, when we're trying something that, as I said to you before, scares you or arouses you. So I want to basically spend my entire day in one of those two states. And so most days I try to find, if I am not challenged, then I'm not trying. And if I don't fail, then I'm not trying hard enough.
Oh my God. I love that answer, because I come from the pro bodybuilding world. So a lot of the years, that was running up in my head was, trying to fit in, trying to be perfect, trying to meet up to the expectations of others. And so when I really started to get tapped in to who I really was and what I wanted to do that made me happy and passionate in the world, I started to ask the question, how can I connect with better people? How can I surround myself with people who want to see me win and who I can play full out around? So what would be your way to share with others how they can find the right people to connect with?
Well, for a start, I was too ignorant to try and fit in. I have literally turned up at palaces and government buildings on a motorcycle. I turned up to Sir Elton John's Oscar party a couple of years ago because my wife didn't want to come until later on. I turned up in a tuxedo on a Norton motorcycle and just pulled up to the front and just parked it there, stuck the helmet on a thing and went into the party. I was too ignorant to care about trying to fit in. But there is a point in our life where we all try to fit in, isn't there?
Yes.
But here's the funny thing. Anyone that we look up to doesn't.
Right.
Okay. Right. Steve Jobs, complete geek. Elon Musk, Richard Branson, all of these people, they made a point of not fitting in, and then everyone follows them. So no one that did anything great did it by following anybody else.
Right.
Okay. So beat to the own drum, dance to your own music, and be yourself. That's the real thing that I would try to get people to do, firstly, because until you're comfortable being who you are, people can't accept that. And here's the weird thing that happens. There are people, even on this, probably Eric Swanson's one of them by now, that just hates me. Okay. There are people on this podcast that wherever they're watching have turned off. For whatever reason, they've gone. I've repelled them. And that's absolutely fine. Because by exerting zero effort and energy on me trying to be who you should like, I can concentrate on all my energy on being who I am, and more importantly, helping you. Okay? So once you've got comfortable in being you, then what you've got to do is look around the room and ask yourself, if I'm having a party and all of my friends are coming, what do they bring to the party? And this will hurt. Because when you actually start, I did something called the chug test. You can look it up on YouTube, the chug test. Or you can go to Steve D. Sims and sign up for the newsletter, and I actually send it as my first video. There's a point that when we look at the people that we're associating with and we look at what they bring to the party, you suddenly realize that some of your friends don't actually bring anything. They bring stress. How many times have you gone to an event and there's a mate of yours and all the mate does is whine and bitch all night? And then you go out another night and do you know they do it again? And the third night, what do? You don't stop them coming. You just ignore them. And you go, oh, that's just Johnny's way. soon as you start settling for that kind of negativity in your life, you start shackling yourself to it. Now, I have people in my world quite openly own countries. And I have other people in my world that could not afford to buy me a beer. I have a bunch of friends that I go to England every couple of years and I phone them up and I'm like, I'm at this hotel. I ain't going down to where you live because you live in a poor, shitty area and I don't want to be mugged. Stay in my hotel for the night. We're going out and I pay for the hotel room. I usually pay for the train to get them up there. I pay for the bit. They bring so much color to my life. The conversations, the humanity, just the authenticity. But I don't want to go down to that pub and have a shitty old fashioned, you know? I want to go to some posh ass bar because I'm a snob by now in my life. And I want it to be served to me on a little silver napkin and, you know, have sexy people. I want that kind of life.
Right.
So I'm not going to settle, but why should my friends? So I'm going to bring them up. And I've never cared about that because they bring something different to the party. And do you know the funny thing? I've done projects where I've had some of the most powerful people in the world helping me on a project. And then I've had a former doorman mate of mine or a biker friend of mine text me over Facebook Messenger and going, Steve, why are you doing that? And do you know the funny thing is no one ever asked me that. And how many times do we do something because the challenge is there? But when we really look at it, we go, well, what is the point? You know, what is the benefit of that? So, you know, they bring something to the party, but I don't have any negativity in it.
Wow. Love it.
That is so great. And I love the idea that there's each person has that own unique thing about themselves, really. And it's just a matter of them uncovering it. How do you help people do that?
By getting them uncomfortable. You've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and you've got to be shaken up. You've got to be embarrassed. You've got to be in a very uncomfortable, revealing situation before you can literally turn around and go, well, will I put these shackles back on? Like if I came up to you and I looked at your 5 friends and I went, that person's a problem. Tell them to piss off and you never want to talk to them again. Okay. You couldn't do that, you know, because you're nice. Okay.
Right.
But when you're on a plane and the steward or the stewardess, or I think they're just called stewards now, aren't they? But whatever it is, I don't want to be sexist. But someone stands up and they go, hey, in the event of an emergency, an oxygen mask is going to come down. When was the last time you heard them turn around and go, please put it on someone else before you put it on you? You've never heard that. Unless you are in a position of oxygen, unless you are in a position of strength, you can't help other people. Okay? So what you've got to do is you've got to step away. You've got to step back and go, why do I do this? Who do I hang around with? Why are they there in my life? And then you've got to mentally just go, they're not in my life anymore. Okay? It's like the old classic, if your house burned down, what would you replace in it? You know? We fixed the table, but would we really buy that table again? Your friends are even a greater cancer. Okay? Are they draining energy from you? Are they just extorting money out of you to pay for that lifestyle? Are they riding on your coattails? Okay? You've got to, and this is going to be a very tough conversation. Sooner or later, you've got to address this, and you've got to address it for your family and for your future. If you're sitting at a dinner table, and I'm sorry to talk in metaphors, but if you're sitting at a dinner table and someone walks up to your partner and takes the bread off their plate or starts eating their dessert, you know, or takes the dessert away, what are you going to do? You're going to stand up and stab them, okay? You're going to hurt them. You're going to physically do something to them because they just got in the way of what is near and dear to you, okay?
Right.
But the person that's holding you back from your greater growth is doing just the same. They're stopping you at getting to your full potential. And there will come a time, if you're smart and if you're lucky, you're going to recognize it. And that's the point. You go up and go, look, John. And the worst ones are people that have gone, oh, I've known him since school. Well, does that mean he's not a prick now? People kind of change, but I'm kind of guessing he was a bit of a prick then as well, you know? And arseholes don't get better with age. So there comes a point when you've just got to go up to people and go, do you know, we played this little merry game for about 10 years now. It's not really working for me. So I really wish you the best with your life. But from here on, we'll be associates, okay? If you need anything, you've got your group. If they, don't step up, reach out. But things are changing between us, okay? And move them on. The sad thing is when it's actually your family members.
Oh, yeah.
Now, in my book, there's a part that I spoke about where I was on a building site and I went up the ladder of this building site with a big pile of bricks on my shoulder. I got to the top of the ladder and next to the ladder was my dad. And then next to him was my uncle. Next to him were my two cousins. And then next to them, my 80-year-old grandfather. And the funny thing is, I suddenly saw my life. I saw my entire family future in front of me. This is where I am now, 15 years old, and that's where I'm going to be, 80 years old. That's it. And I went up to my granddad during the tea break time, and I'm surprised and thankful I didn't get a smack in the nose, but I went up to her and I went, Granddad, did you ever think you'll be doing this at your age? And he literally just turned around without even looking at me, blowing into his tea. He turned around and said, if you don't quit today, you'll be me tomorrow. And it was powerful. It was like, bang. So when I came out of that hut, I told my dad, because he'd run the building site, I said, Dad, I went in, I saw my I've got to quit. And he said, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know, but I'm going to find out what I'm capable of. And he went, we're shorthanded. You finish Friday. And I went, great, thank you. Okay. And I never got to tell my granddad how impactful that moment in the tea hut was because he died. But I got home and my dad told my mum that that Steve had quit. And my mum came yelling in my bedroom and she went, oh, you think you're better than us, don't you? And I went, no, I think I'm better than this. And I want to see what I am capable of. Mm-hmm. And she literally just turned around and she went, that's the same. Which it clearly freaking wasn't. But do you know, I never, ever had a relationship with my mum from that day.
Wow.
And it's sad. I'm now in my 50s. She's in England. I haven't seen her for years. My dad's died. And I've never seen my mum because she always thought I went against the family business. Mm-hmm. And she couldn't understand why I would do that. But as entrepreneurs, like we said right at the beginning, aren't we all a little bit different, but very similar? Entrepreneurs cut us in half. There's going to be one day they're going to do some, Peter Diamandis along with Elon and, Ray Kurzweil and all these people. One day they're going to go, there it is. There's the DNA molecule that floats around in all of us weird misfits. And there's going to be that molecule.
Yeah, absolutely. It's coming. No question about that.
Yep. Absolutely. So, Steve, how do you get deep into the minds of your clients? And, I'm sure some of them may shut down on you or, they're like, oh, my God, he's coming at this force in front of me. But how do you really get deep into their minds so that you can create this shift and get them out of their comfort zone and do the things that you're describing here about your own life?
So do you know the most offensive word in the planet?
What?
What is it?
I don't know. What is it?
I know some people are out there probably thinking it's a 4-letter word that starts with F. But no, it's not the word fart. It's the word why. Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
People will contact me and they go, hey, Steve, we should get together. And I will respond with one word. I will answer with why. And some people, it will stop them in their track. It'll offend them. And I go, oh, I heard you were great. You're obviously a prick. And I'll be like, oh, there you go. Well, that's just saved me 10 years of my life. And I'll get other people saying, good question, Steve. This is why. Question. So I always ask why. And clients do things and they come to me and I say, all right, why? I want to meet Elton John. Why? I want to do this. Why? Or I will say to them, hey, would you like to do this? And they'll go, I want to do that. And I'll be like, great. Why? I want to get them answering what's deep inside. And I'm going to give you a little, I don't know how long we're going for, but I'm going to give you another story. How long do we have?
We have 20 minutes. Yeah. So keep going.
So, I ask why a lot. In fact, in the book, I see you put a little plug there for my book. Joe Ingram, you arouse and scare me at the same time, you sexy bitch. But in my book, I actually talk about asking why 3 times. So I'm going to give you an Elton John story.
Okay.
So I had a guy. I was going to say client then, but he's not and wasn't, and never will be. This person phoned up my office one day, and they knew we were working with Sir Elton John, and they asked to go and meet Elton at the Oscar party. There was something off about his voice, and one of the girls put him through to me and said, "Can you handle this? There's something funny about this fella." So I went, "Yeah, sure, put him through." So this guy comes on the phone. I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And he's like, "Hey, it's great." He's like, "So what do you want to do?" He said, "Oh, I want to meet Sir Elton John." I said, "Oh, that's great. Why?" And he says, "Well, you know, he's one of the last big icons, and he's famous, and everyone knows Elton, and he's known by just one word, and he's going to die one of these days, and I want to get a photograph with him." So I said, "Okay," and he was quiet. So that was it. So I went, "All right, let me see what I can do, and I'll come back to you." And of course, I never went back to him. I didn't even take his phone number. Then about a month later, we're getting closer to the Oscar party. There's loads of media about me and Elton and Dave Furnish and all this kind of stuff going on. And I got another phone call, and it came into the team, and one of them grabbed it and contacted me on the buzzer, and they went, "Hey," and this is when I had an office in Palm Beach, and they said, "Hey, we got a guy on the phone that's trying to get to meet Sir Elton John for a photograph." And I went, "Well, the guy from last month." They went, no, different verse, different voice. "We think it's the same guy or his buddy trying to get it for him because you wouldn't come back to him." So I went, "Oh, I'll get rid of him, put him through." So I answered the phone and said, "Hey, how you doing?" This guy's like, "Hey, how are you?" I said, so how can I help you? What do you want?" And he said, "Yeah, I want to meet Sir Elton John. I want to get a photograph of him, a photograph with him." So I said, "Oh, that's fantastic. Why?" It was quiet. "Well, in a slightly less buoyant voice, he says, "Well, you know, the guy's an icon. He's a legend. You know, he's known by just one name. He's hugely famous, and I just really want to meet him. And there's some things." Now his voice was getting quieter, okay, and there was starting to get some thought behind it, and there's some things that caught me, because that's a weird thing to say at the end of it. And so I said to him, "What things?" And he goes quiet. So he says, and I'll try not to quiet on this, and this was like freaking over 10 years ago, this story. And so he comes on the phone and he says, my dad used to take me to school. And he always took me to school, from the infant school all the way up into high school. My dad would take me there. My dad would pick me up. Not my mum. She would wave at the door, but it was our thing, me and my dad. There was never a day until I got a car for high school that my dad didn't take me to school and pick me up from school. And the first car we had a broken cassette in it, and it was Elton John. We couldn't eject it. So we used to sing our lungs out to Elton John all the way to school and all the way back from school. And then he got this new car, and it had this thing called a CD player in it. So he got Sir Elton John's greatest hits, and we used to sing Elton John all the way there and Elton John all the way back. And even when we got into high school, even though I would stare out the window with such contempt and embarrassment, my dad would sing Elton John on the way to school and sing on the way back from school. He said, about 20 years ago, my dad died. He said, and when I'm driving down the road and I'm going to an appointment, I'm going to work, I'm going to pick up my kids, and Elton John comes on the radio. He said, my dad's alive for 3 minutes in the chair next to me singing. And I want to meet Elton John and say thank you for those 3 minutes every now and then.
Wow.
And he told me that. So I contacted him and I told him that story. And we took him to the party, and they stood in front of each other, and then he leant in and he told this story, and there was hugs and there was tears. And there wasn't a dry eye around us that knew that story, that knew exactly what he was telling Sir Elton John, that wasn't crying at that time. If you can get to the why, then you've got to the core. Other than that, it's superficial all the way through.
Oh my God.
Wow. That is so beautiful.
That is.
Well, and what that brings to me is, you know, that right now, just the way things have been, you know, what do you feel like the most important messages for people to hear right now?
Well, because of COVID?
Yeah, just, you know, just kind of the state of events, you know, the state
very easy. Wake the fuck up, okay? And it can't be put any more blunt than that. We're all bitching that we can't connect with each other. We can't go out with each other. We can't go to restaurants. We can't communicate with each other. Well, wake up. We started distracting and detracting from each other 20 years ago with MySpace. The social world has been gradually distancing ourselves from each other. Someone has a baby, they don't phone their mate up. They put it on Twitter, okay? It's about time when we realize what we've lost. I think COVID is a reset button, because the second that we can go back out again, we're going to be phoning up our mates and we're going to go out and have a drink with it because we've missed it. The fact is we could have done it 2 years ago, but we were too stupid and we didn't do it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to realize, as animals and the slowest evolving technology in the planet, we're pack animals. We want to stand around. We want to communicate. We want to huddle around with a bunch of creative misfits and go, hey, what's scaring you and what are you going to do tomorrow? What are you doing and how are you going to make it work? What's going to challenge you and how far are you going to push it until you fail? And then how much further are you going to go again? You know, how can we step it up? And that's what we need to be doing. If we take, I apologize, I don't want to get on my soapbox here, but if we ignore what COVID has removed for us, we fail to screw up on a much grander scale than a pandemic ever will. We need to realize what we're losing. I can't wait. I had a speakeasy the other week. I do these private events. Yeah, I did it in Nashville. I never have any more than 40 people. And I honestly was worried how many people would turn up. And the only reason a few people didn't was because they were in Canada or in Europe. And we still had 36 out of 40 people turn up. Okay. And they were desperate to hug and communicate and talk. And do you know the funny thing is, as we started doing some of the training, I was having to force them to sit down and to get away from each other for a second. Hey, you can sit on the sofa and hold hands. But for Christ's sake, sit down, let's get on with it. But we needed to connect. We needed to. And if we don't realize that we are those kind of people that want to surround ourselves with those people and have conversations, then there's going to be a real greater problem that's going to come at us down the line.
I so agree. You know, I lived in Europe for 3.5 years in Germany. And when I lived over there, I mean, going into like the discotheques and the clubs and stuff in Europe, the guys dance with the guys, the girls dance with the girls and the guys dance together, and they're all immersed and, you know, having their drinks and, you know, having a good time. A lot of them don't get caught up in a lot of the inhibitions that, you know, so many people do here in the US and create all these obstacles for themselves.
But again, you've lit it up again. If anyone wants to record back to or rewind to the beginning, we talked about the parameters, misconceptions, and myths that you impose on yourself. And you've exactly just told that. When you break those shackles and when you go, fuck it, this is me, take it, leave it, move on, we'll all be fine. When you're willing to do that, you allow yourself to make greater impact with those that you huddle around with. And that's the beauty of being you. There should never, ever, ever be any effort in being you.
Wow, that's so well said. And that's so, at this age in my life, 55, I love that song, living to be the real me. that in there, but give me a break. I love being the real me, and my journey has taught me that. So here you are with this fantastic message and saying it the way that you do and being very blunt about it.
Well, and that's what connection is all about.
Do you know, one of the funny things was when you go, we're having a conversation, okay? And someone said to me before about, oh, you know, how do you do this? How do you converse with someone? How do you go negotiate? You know, what if you get it wrong? Thanks, Ken, I'll dance with you. You know, you can lead, I don't care. But if you get into a bar and you speak to someone, when was the last time you chatted with them and then you went, oh, hang on, time out. I didn't say that right. Let me step back out and I'm going to come back in and we'll just edit that back in and we'll edit that bit out. It doesn't happen, does it? You know, a conversation is full of opinions, missayings. Oh, I stumbled. Who cares? That's the conversation.
And that's what's great about it. That's the beauty.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe.
Because the fun and the joy of connection and being together is each one of us in our uniqueness, is it not?
Yes, it is. It is. And we've always been, it gets stupid. So people pay me to help them market and brand. Okay. Mm-hmm. I never did any of that. Okay. What you have to understand about branding and marketing is not done by you. That's the myth. Okay. A brand is what people say about you when you've left the room. Okay. That's your brand. Okay. If you're the Velvet Sledgehammer, I'll take that all day long, but that's my brand. Okay. So that's how it should be. But how many people do you find in marketing and branding that try to be someone else? And here's the dumb thing. They try to be someone else. They try to change themselves. And here's the third thing that just really pisses me off. They then try to become unique. We started off unique. We cover it up with a bunch of icing and shit that you buy in a 5 and dime store. And then you wonder why people aren't staring you at anymore. Okay? Be you. Be your unicorn. Be as different as you possibly can. Stand proud. Stand tall.
And Joe Ingram, I mean, there's no argument there, I don't think.
No. He's getting a lot of airtime here. You should start charging him for advertising.
I know, he's loving this. Well, gosh, Steve, this has been amazing. And man, so I mean, for us, high vibe, totally. A lot of fun. So thank you so much. Yeah. Good. Thank you for being here.
I'm glad it worked. And I hope someone out there is going, screw it. Tomorrow I'm going to do something a bit different. That's what we want them to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. So tell our audience for our podcast how they can reach you.
Well, you can jump over to an Entrepreneur's Advantage Facebook page. It's free of charge. There is an easier way. You can actually text the word SIMS, SIMS, to 33777. Now, that'll only work if you're in Canada and America. But you can find me on stevedsims.com. You know, I'm all over the place. Instagram, I do a lot of pictures in there. So Instagram's my big one. And I'm Steve D. Sims pretty much everywhere. So I'm easy to find.
And tell us about your podcast. Do you have a podcast?
Yeah, I have a podcast called The Art of Making Things Happen. I talk to myself. I talk to guests. I talk to friends. And just we go over different things that kind of impact to make us think. And we have the speakeasy at simsspeakeasy.com.
And you also are on YouTube.
I am. Everywhere's Steve D. Sims. You know, I'm easier to get than COVID. So, you know, just find me everywhere.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Now, Pamela, why don't you go ahead and tell our audience members how to reach us on the High Vibe Nation?
Of course, you can find us on the web at thehighvibenation.com. Also on Facebook at The High Vibe Nation and on Instagram at The High Vibe Nation.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. We want to thank our audience members and our guests, as always, for being here, supporting us through this entire show with Steve Sims, Ken, Joe, all the guys that are always here with us, Larry. And Robert Brooker, thank you. We appreciate each and every one of you. Ken Walls said, text sent, Steve. So until next week, thank you so much, each and every one of you, for being here, and have a great evening. Bye now.
Night, everyone.
From everybody here at the High Vibe Nation, we want to say thank you for choosing to raise your vibration. And of course, please like, share, and subscribe. If you need to find us on the web, check us out at www.thehighvibenation.com. Looking forward to seeing you on the next episode, and keep high vibing.